The great hall of Kepler Prime space station buzzed with angry voices. It was the year 2387, and another emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was about to begin. The massive chamber could hold representatives from over 300 different alien species, but today only the most important ones were present. Ambassador Jake Martinez sat at the human table looking tired. Next to him sat Colonel Lisa Thompson, Earth's military advisor, and Ryan Carter, a young diplomatic aide who was taking notes on his tablet. Jake had been doing this job for 15 years, and every year it got harder. The Zarathi Empire delegates entered first. They were tall, gray-skinned beings with 4 arms and angry red eyes. Behind them came the Viridian Collective, slug-like creatures that moved on hover platforms because they could not walk. The two groups immediately began arguing in their alien languages. "Enough!" shouted the council moderator, a floating jellyfish-like being called a Nethys. "We will use the translation system. Humans will translate for everyone." Jake sighed and pressed a button on his console. The human-built translation system came online, turning all the alien words into clear speech that everyone could understand. The Zarathi representative stood up on his 4 legs. "The Viridian scum have invaded our mining colonies again. This is the 14th time this year. We demand action." The lead Viridian made a wet, angry sound. "Lies. Those systems belong to us. Our ancestors mined those asteroids 2,000 years ago." "That's not what the historical records show," said Jake calmly. He had heard this same argument many times before. "According to the documents we helped you both translate, those systems were neutral territory." Both aliens turned to stare at Jake. "Fix it," demanded the Zarathi. "You humans always know what to do." "Make them stop attacking us," said the Viridian. "You have the power to force peace." Jake felt a familiar weight in his chest. Here they were again, expecting humans to solve their problems. It had been like this for 200 years, ever since humans first joined the galactic community. Before Jake could answer, another group of aliens entered the chamber. These were the Keth, insect-like beings with 6 legs and shiny black shells. Their leader clicked his mandibles nervously. "Honored humans," the Keth said, "our economy is failing. Our people are starving. We need your help to fix our trade networks." "What exactly do you want us to do?" asked Colonel Thompson. "Send your economists. Send your engineers. Fix our problems like you always do," the Keth replied. "We will pay you in rare metals." Ryan Carter looked up from his notes. "Sir," he whispered to Jake, "they still owe us for the last 3 times we helped them." Jake nodded. The Keth never paid their debts, but they always promised to. More aliens entered the chamber. The Deepsworn were next, looking like giant blue whales with arms and legs. They moved slowly and their voices were deep and sad. "Human friends," said their speaker, "our homeworld is dying. The oceans are turning to acid. Our children cannot survive in the water anymore. Please send your scientists to save us." "We already sent scientists," said Jake. "Last year. They gave you the equipment to clean your oceans." "Yes, but we do not understand how to use it," the Deepsworn replied. "You must send teachers. You must stay and run the machines for us." Jake felt his patience breaking. Every single time it was the same story. The aliens had problems, humans fixed them, and then the aliens wanted humans to fix them again when something went wrong. "What happened to the instruction manuals we left you?" asked Colonel Thompson. "Too complicated," said the Deepsworn. "We are not as smart as humans. You must do it for us." The chamber filled with more alien voices. The Christek Communion, beings made of living crystal, complained that their energy networks were failing. The Void Dancers, shadowy creatures from the dark between stars, wanted human help to fight some enemy Jake had never heard of. The Bloom Collective, plant-like aliens, needed human biotechnology to stop a disease that was killing their forests. Every single species had the same thing to say. Humans must fix this. Humans know how. Humans always help. Jake looked around the chamber. These beings came from thousands of different worlds. Some were older than human civilization. Some had technology that seemed like magic. Some had been exploring space when humans were still living in caves, but not one of them could solve their own problems anymore. "This is insane," whispered Ryan to Jake. "We're like babysitters for the entire galaxy." Jake stood up slowly. The Realm chamber fell silent. All eyes from every alien species focused on him. They were waiting for him to speak, waiting for him to tell them that humanity would save them all just like always. "We're done," Jake said quietly. The silence stretched longer. The aliens looked confused. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" asked the Zorathi representative. Jake's voice got stronger. "I said we're done. Humanity is withdrawing from all galactic affairs, effective immediately." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Aliens began shouting in their own languages, and the translation system struggled to keep up. "You cannot be serious," said the Keth leader. "Who will solve our problems?" "Solve your own problems," said Colonel Thompson, standing up next to Jake. "But we do not know how," wailed the Deepsworn. "We have forgotten how to live without human help." "Then you better learn fast," said Jake. He began gathering his papers. "For 200 years, humanity has been your problem solver, your peacekeeper, your teacher, your engineer, your doctor, and your babysitter. We're tired of it." "You cannot leave us," said the Viridian. "We need you." "No," said Jake firmly. "You want us. There's a difference. You've all become so dependent on human help that you've forgotten how to think for yourselves." Ryan Carter was already packing up his equipment. The other human delegates in the chamber began to stand up and leave their posts. "This is a disaster," said the Nethys moderator. "Without humans, the council cannot function. Your translation systems, your computers, your peace treaties, everything depends on human technology and human knowledge. Should have thought of that before," said Colonel Thompson. "Maybe you should have learned how to use the technology we gave you instead of just expecting us to run it forever." Jake walked toward the exit, followed by all the human representatives. Behind them, the aliens began to panic. Some were crying, others were shouting, and a few were already trying to contact their home governments. At the door, Jake turned around, one last time. "Don't follow us. Don't contact us. Don't send ambassadors to Earth. We're going home and we're staying there. But the galaxy will fall apart without you," said the Zorathi. Jake smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Then maybe you should have appreciated us while you had us." The humans left the chamber, leaving behind 300 alien species who suddenly realized they had no idea how to survive without human help. The great galactic civilization that had lasted for thousands of years was about to discover just how much they had depended on the species they had always taken for granted. The galaxy's age of human protection was over. What came next would be much worse. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within 6 hours of the humans walking out of the Galactic Council, every major government knew what had happened. Emergency meetings were called on hundreds of worlds. Panic spread like wildfire. On Earth, President Nancy Walsh stood before the Global Assembly in New Geneva. The huge auditorium was packed with representatives from every human nation. Outside, crowds of people watched on giant screens, waiting to hear what their leader would say. "My fellow humans," President Walsh began, her voice calm but firm. "Today, Ambassador Martinez and our delegation withdrew from the Galactic Council. I want to make this clear to everyone. This decision has my full support." The assembly erupted in cheers and applause. For years, humans had grown tired of being the galaxy's unpaid problem solvers. "For 200 years, we have cleaned up everyone else's messes," the president continued. "We have stopped their wars, fixed their economies, healed their sick, and solved their problems. And what did we get in return? More demands, more problems, more expectations that we would always be there to save them." In the back of the assembly, Admiral Ben Cooper listened carefully. He had been waiting for this day for years. As soon as the president finished speaking, he would begin the largest operation in human history. "That ends today," President Walsh declared. "Effective immediately, all human personnel will be recalled from alien territories. All human assistance programs are canceled. All human technology transfers are stopped. We are going home, and we are staying home." The cheering was so loud it shook the building. Admiral Cooper activated his communication device. All fleet commanders, this is Cooper. Operation Homecoming is now active. Begin immediate recall of all human assets. Across the galaxy, human ships received the same message. The largest evacuation in history was about to begin. On the mining world of Cygnus VII, engineer Pete Johnson was working in the main power station when his communicator beeped. He read the message and smiled. It was time to go home. Pete walked to the main control room where 3 Keth engineers were monitoring the fusion reactors. These reactors powered the entire planet and provided energy for the massive mining operations that kept the local economy running. "Hey, bug boys," Pete called out, using the nickname humans had for the insect-like Keth. "I've got some news for you." The lead Keth engineer clicked his mandibles nervously. "What news, human Pete?" "I'm going home. All humans are going home. This means the power station is now your responsibility." The Keth engineers looked at each other in confusion. "But we do not know how to run the reactors," one of them said. "Well, you better learn fast," Pete replied. He began shutting down the automated systems that had been running smoothly for decades. These reactors need maintenance every 72 hours. If you don't do it right, the whole planet goes dark. "But you cannot leave us," the lead engineer protested. "We need you to teach us." Pete was already packing his tools. "I've been here for 8 years. In all that time, not one of you ever asked to learn how these machines work. You just expected me to do everything forever." "We will pay you more money," another Keth offered desperately. "Too late for that," Pete said. He walked toward the exit. "You want us gone? Fine. But you don't get to keep our work running without us." Behind him, the Keth engineers stared at the control panels in terror. Without the automated systems, they had no idea how to keep the reactors stable. Meanwhile, in the space between Zorathi and Viridian territory, 2 massive fleets faced each other in battle formation. The war between these species had been going on for 300 years, stopped only by human intervention, and restarted whenever humans looked away. Commander Zeth of the Zorathi battlecruiser, Darkness Rising, prepared to fire on the Viridian ships. His weapons officer pressed the firing button, but nothing happened. "Sir, the targeting system is not responding," the weapons officer reported. "Fix it," Commander Zeth ordered. "Sir, I cannot. The targeting computer is human-made technology. I do not know how it works." Across space, the Viridian fleet was having the same problem. Their shield generators, which were also human-designed, were showing error messages that none of them could read. Captain Vess of the Viridian ship Blue Current called his engineering team. "Why are our shields failing?" "The human maintenance schedule says the shield generators need new power crystals every 60 days, his chief engineer replied. "But we do not know how to install them." "Where are the human technicians?" "They left this morning, sir. All of them. They said they were going home." Both fleets found themselves floating helplessly in space, unable to fight because their weapons and defenses depended on human technology that they had never learned to maintain. On the medical station orbiting the Keth homeworld, Captain Amy Rodriguez watched her screens with grim satisfaction. She commanded the hospital ship Mercy, which had been providing medical care to Keth citizens for 12 years. "Captain," her medical officer called out, "the Keth are sending emergency signals. Their planet-side hospitals are shutting down." Amy looked at the data streaming across her screens. Every major hospital on the Keith homeworld was going dark. The life support systems, surgical equipment, and medicine production facilities were all human-built and human-maintained. "Captain Rodriguez," came a desperate voice over the communication channel. "This is Minister Clack of the Keth Medical Authority. Our hospitals are failing. Thousands of our people will die without immediate help." Amy picked up her microphone. "Minister Clack, this is Captain Rodriguez. My orders are to return to Earth immediately. But you cannot leave us to die," the minister pleaded. "We need your medical technology." "Minister," Amy said calmly, "I've been in your space for 12 years. In all that time, I offered to train your doctors in human medical techniques. I offered to teach your engineers how to maintain the equipment. Do you remember what your government said?" There was silence on the channel. Your government said that learning human medicine was too difficult for Keth minds, Amy continued. You said it was easier to just let humans do all the work. Well, now you get to see how that decision worked out. We will do anything, the minister begged. We will pay any price. Too late, Amy replied. We taught you everything we could. But you never bothered to learn. You just wanted us to take care of you forever. Amy cut the communication and ordered her ship to begin the journey back to Earth. Behind her, the lights in Keith hospitals began going out one by one, all across the galaxy. The same scene was playing out. Human engineers shut down the machines they had built. Human doctors closed the clinics they had operated. Human teachers left the schools where they had tried to educate alien students who never wanted to learn. The species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were about to discover what life was like without the humans they had always taken for granted. And they were not going to like what they learned. 6 months had passed since the humans left. The galaxy was falling apart. On the Zarathi homeworld, Emperor Krath stood in his war room staring at reports that made his 4 hands shake with anger. His mighty war fleet, the pride of his empire, sat dead in space. The faster-than-light engines that had carried his ships across the galaxy for decades had stopped working. How many ships are still operational? The Emperor asked his fleet commander. 12 out of 3,000, my lord, came the shameful reply. The human-designed jump drives are failing one by one. Our engineers cannot repair them. Emperor Krath slammed his fist on the table. We conquered 100 worlds with those ships. Yes, my lord. But the humans built the engines. Without their maintenance, the quantum cores are becoming unstable. 3 ships exploded last week when their crews tried to make repairs. The Emperor's red eyes burned with rage. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we demand they return and fix our ships. We have sent 47 messages, my lord. The humans do not reply to any of them. On the other side of the galaxy, the Viridian Collective was facing an even worse crisis. Their entire civilization was built around trade networks that connected thousands of worlds. But those networks depended on communication relays that humans had built and maintained. Council Leader Vess slid across the floor of the emergency meeting chamber on her slug-like body. Around her, other Viridian leaders were panicking. Report on the communication system, she ordered. 70% of our relays are dead, came the answer. We cannot contact our outer colonies. Trade ships are lost in space because they cannot receive navigation signals. What about the backup systems? Also failing. The human technicians were the only ones who knew how to repair them. We never learned. Council Leader Vess felt sick. How many worlds have we lost contact with? 800 and counting. Some colonies may be starving because supply ships cannot find them. The crisis was even worse on the Keth homeworld. The insect-like beings had always struggled with agriculture because their planet had poor soil. For 50 years, humans had provided biotechnology that made farming possible, now that technology was failing. Minister Clack stood in a field that should have been full of growing crops. Instead, he saw only brown, dying plants. The genetic modifications that humans had made to help food grow in Keth soil were breaking down. How long before the food runs out? He asked his agricultural advisor. 3 months, maybe 4 if we ration carefully, came the reply. And the backup food stores? We ate those during the last famine. We never rebuilt them because we thought the human crops would always work. Minister Clack clicked his mandibles, nervously. What about asking other species for help? Sir, everyone is having the same problems. The Zarathi cannot travel to bring us food because their ships do not work. The Viridians cannot communicate with their farming worlds. The galaxy is falling apart. The worst situation was on Tidal Prime, homeworld of the Deepsworn. The whale-like beings lived in vast oceans, but their planet's atmosphere was naturally poisonous. For decades, humans had operated massive atmospheric processors that kept the air breathable and the oceans clean. Chief Swimmer Deep Current floated in the council chambers, which were now half filled with toxic gas. The atmospheric processors had been shutting down one by one, and no Deepsworn knew how to restart them. How long before the oceans become unlivable? Deep Current asked. The toxin levels are rising every day, his science advisor replied, speaking through a breathing mask. In 2 months, the water will be too poisonous for our children to survive. In 6 months, even adults will not be able to live in it. What about the emergency protocols the humans left us? We tried to follow them, but the instructions are too complex. The processors use quantum chemistry that we do not understand. Every time we try to repair something, we make it worse. Deep current felt despair washing over him like a poisonous tide. Send another message to Earth. Beg them to help us. Sir, we have sent over 100 messages. The humans do not answer any of them. Back on Earth, Chief Engineer Kate Morgan sat in the Global Monitoring Center, watching news feeds from across the galaxy. The massive screens showed the collapse happening everywhere. Look at this, she said to her assistant, pointing at a report from Keth Space. Their population is down 15% already. Starvation and disease are spreading because their medical systems failed. Her assistant shook his head sadly. What about the deep sworn? Half their cities are already evacuated. The ocean toxins are killing everything. Their fish are dying, their coral reefs are bleaching, and their children are getting sick. Kate switched to another channel showing the Zorathi homeworld. The mighty Zorathi Empire can't even get supply ships between their own planets anymore. Their citizens are rioting because they can't understand how their primitive human servants were the only thing keeping their civilization running. Are you feeling guilty about this? Her assistant asked. Kate laughed bitterly. Guilty? For 50 years I begged them to learn how their atmospheric processors worked. I wrote simple instruction manuals. I offered to train their engineers. Do you know what they told me? What? They said deep-sworn brains were too different from human brains to understand human technology. They said it was more efficient to just let humans handle all the technical work. Kate pointed at the screen showing dying deep-sworn cities. Well, there's their efficiency. The most shocking discovery came when the Galactic Council tried to hold an emergency session to discuss the crisis. The remaining alien delegates gathered on Kepler Prime Station, expecting to plan some kind of response to the human withdrawal. But when they arrived, they found that the station itself was failing. The life support systems were showing error messages in human writing that none of them could read. The artificial gravity was becoming unstable. The defensive shields that protected the station from space debris were offline. The Nethys moderator floated in the main chamber, which was now dangerously cold because the heating system had shut down. How long before the station becomes uninhabitable? He asked the maintenance crew. Unknown, came the reply. All the critical systems were built by humans. The instruction manuals are written in human languages that our translators cannot process without human-programmed computers. What about the translation system we use for council meetings? That was also built by humans. It stopped working 3 days ago. The Nethys felt a chill that had nothing to do with the failing heating system. You mean we cannot even communicate with each other without human technology? Correct. Our species evolved different languages and communication methods. Only humans figured out how to make translation systems that worked for everyone. As the alien delegates struggled to communicate with each other using broken fragments of common languages, the truth became clear. Humans had not just been helpers or advisors. They had been the foundation that held galactic civilization together, and now that foundation was gone. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about taking help for granted, but the lesson was coming too late to save most of them. 2 years had passed since humanity left the galactic community. The galaxy was not the same place anymore. Director Sam Blake stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest orbital defense platform, looking out at the stars. The platform was one of 50 that now surrounded Earth like a protective shell. Each one carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Sir, his assistant called out, long-range sensors are detecting a large group of ships approaching the outer edge of our solar system. Sam turned from the window. How many ships? Over 2,000, sir. They're coming from all directions but moving slowly. Most of them appear to be damaged. Sam smiled coldly. Finally, I was wondering when they would swallow their pride and come begging. On Earth below, President Nancy Walsh was beginning her second term in office. The planet had changed dramatically since the withdrawal. Cities were cleaner and more advanced. The economy was booming because all the resources that used to go to helping aliens were now being used to improve human lives. Madam President, her communication officer announced, "We're receiving transmission requests from the approaching alien fleet. They're using every frequency they can think of." "Let me guess," President Walsh said. "They want to talk." "Yes, ma'am. The messages are all the same. They're requesting permission to enter our solar system and asking for an emergency meeting." President Walsh walked to her office window and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the survivors of galactic civilization were limping toward Earth in broken ships, finally ready to admit what they should have admitted decades ago. Commander Helen Davis was in charge of the outer defense grid. Her job was to make sure nothing got close to Earth without permission. She watched her screens as the alien fleet slowly approached. "Commander," her weapons officer reported, "some of those ships are barely holding together. I'm seeing massive hull breaches, failed life support, and engine problems. A few of them are drifting dead in space." Helen studied the sensor data. The mighty fleets that had once ruled the galaxy looked like scrap metal floating in space. "Any signs of weapons or hostile intent?" "No, ma'am. Most of them don't have working weapons anymore. The few that do have their weapon systems powered down. They're broadcasting surrender signals." Helen opened a communication channel to the fleet. "Alien vessels. This is Commander Davis of Earth, Defense Command. State your purpose." The reply came immediately in dozens of different alien languages, all talking at once. Helen switched on the human translation system, which still worked perfectly after all these years. "Please," came the desperate voices. "We need to speak with your leaders. We surrender. We submit. Please help us." Helen looked at her crew. 2 years ago, these same species had acted like humans were their servants. Now they were begging just to talk. "Alien fleet," Helen transmitted. "You will maintain your current position. Any ship that moves closer to Earth without permission will be destroyed. Our leaders will decide if they want to speak with you." The response was immediate agreement from every ship in the fleet. Back on Earth, an emergency meeting was called. President Walsh sat at the head of a long table surrounded by military leaders, scientists, and advisors. On the main screen, they could see images of the alien fleet. "What's left out there?" asked Admiral Ben Cooper. Intelligence Director Carol White consulted her reports. "It's worse than we thought. The Zarathi Empire has collapsed completely. Their homeworld is in chaos, and most of their colonies have declared independence or just gone dark. The Viridian Collective lost contact with 80% of their territory. The Keth are down to maybe 10% of their original population. What about the others? The Deepsworn abandoned their homeworld completely. The few survivors are living on space stations with failing life support. The Christek Communion shattered into fragments when their energy networks collapsed. Most of the smaller species are just gone." President Walsh leaned back in her chair. "And now they want our help." "Yes, ma'am. They're offering complete surrender. Total submission to human authority. They want us to take over what's left of their governments and fix their problems." Admiral Cooper laughed. 2 years ago, they were treating us like we were beneath them. Now they want us to rule them. "The question," said President Walsh, "is what do we do about it?" Foreign Minister Bob Chen spoke up. "Ma'am, some of these species are facing extinction. As horrible as they were to us, do we really want to watch entire civilizations die?" "They made their choice," replied Defense Secretary Linda Gray. "For 200 years we offered to teach them. We tried to make them independent. They chose dependence instead. Now they're facing the consequences." President Walsh stood up and walked to the window again. "The real question is whether we can trust them. If we help them now, what's to stop them from going back to their old ways once their crisis is over?" "Nothing," said Admiral Cooper. "That's why I recommend we don't help them at all. Let them figure it out themselves." "But," said Minister Chen, "we could help them on our terms. Make them accept human authority permanently. No more Galactic Council, no more alien governments. Everything goes through us." Intelligence Director White nodded. "The survivors are desperate enough to agree to anything. They know they can't survive without us." President Walsh made her decision. "Set up a communication link with the fleet. I'll speak to them personally." An hour later, President Walsh sat in the main communications center. On the screen in front of her were the faces of alien leaders from across the galaxy. They looked tired, desperate, and afraid. Representatives of the former galactic community, President Walsh began. I understand you wish to discuss the current situation. A Zarathi general spoke first, his forearms shaking with emotion. President Walsh, our empire is dying. Our people are starving. We were wrong about humans. We need your help. A Viridian council member spoke next. We offer complete submission to human authority. Please just save what's left of our people. Similar pleas came from all the alien representatives. These were the survivors of species that had once ruled thousands of worlds. Now they were begging for help from the humans they had once looked down upon. President Walsh listened to all of them, then spoke. You want human help, but why should we trust you? For 2 centuries you treated us like servants. You expected us to solve all your problems while giving us nothing in return. We understand now, said the Keth representative. We were fools. We thought we were superior to humans. We were wrong. Yes, you were wrong, President Walsh agreed. The question is, what are you willing to do to prove you've learned your lesson? The aliens looked at each other nervously. We offer total surrender, said the Zarathi general. Humans can rule our territory. We will obey human law. We will do whatever you command. President Walsh smiled, but it was not a kind smile. Total surrender, complete submission. You want humans to become your masters. Yes, came the desperate reply from multiple voices. Please, President Walsh stood up. Very well, here are my terms. Any species that wants human help will dissolve their government and accept direct human rule. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your technology will be turned over to human control. Your leaders will be replaced by human administrators. The aliens agreed immediately. Furthermore, President Walsh continued, any species that accepts human help will provide labor and resources for human expansion. We will be taking over the empty worlds that your failed civilizations left behind. Again, immediate agreement. President Walsh looked at the desperate faces on her screen. The galaxy belongs to humanity now. You will live as our subjects, or you will die as independent fools. Choose. Every alien representative chose submission. As the communication ended, President Walsh turned to her advisors. Send the colonial fleets, it's time to claim our new empire. Outside, human ships began departing Earth, but these were not rescue missions. They were conquest fleets, going to claim the galaxy that had finally learned to fear and respect human power. The age of human kindness was over. The age of human dominance had begun.